We are going to call to order and have the roll call for Tirz number 2. If you would call roll, please.
Inglesby?
Here.
Cohen? Here. Mitchell?
Here.
Heiser?
Here.
Rizzo?
Present.
Zuniga?
Present.
Harris?
Here.
McKinney?
Here.
Tobias?
Here.
Okay, thank you. Item number 1 is approval of the Tirz number 2, November 19th, 2024 meeting minutes.
Commissioner, I'd like to go and make a motion to approve the minutes for the Tirz number 2 meeting from November 19th, 2024.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion or comments regarding these minutes? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, next is citizen comment period. Is there any citizens that have signed up to speak or anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, we'll go on to item number 2. Consider approval of a resolution authorizing the expenditure of an amount not to exceed $2,600,000 for relocation of overhead utilities on Kohler's Crossing between FM 2770 and FM 1626. Mr. Barber.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Leon Barba, City Engineer. What we're presenting to you today, of course, is the status of where we are with the 60% of the design on this particular project. It's the Kohler's roundabout project. As far as design, we're using stopping sight distance, sight lines to define the proposed right-of-way takes. We do have some replacement of existing trees, and landscaping will be coordinated with these requirements. All pedestrian ramps are at ground level, and we are not proposing any speed tables on this. We will be using the RRFBs. Those are the rectangular flashing blinkers. I always forget that acronym, I'm sorry. Rectangular rapid flashing blinkers. The right-of-way acquisition is totaling 0.32 acres. We have 4 parcels, 1 at each corner. And we do have another parcel at Everett Drive that we're going to need to acquire also. But this is at the Cromwell intersection. So there's one particular question that we want to ask the Commission at this point in time. Utility relocation. As you know, the direction of the board was to take these improvements all the way from 2770 up to 1626. Poles 1, 2, and 3 are within that limit of the work that we want to do. In conversations with PEC, they are saying in order to properly do this, they want to actually take it up to pole number 4. And at pole number 4, they would take it down underground, bore underneath Kohler's Crossing. That's what they would want to do in order to make this happen and for us to take out poles 1, 2, and 3. The estimated cost that we came up with is about a little over $1 million. And now, obviously, this was not in our original scope of the budget. One thing to note is they are not in conflict with the roundabout construction at Cromwell. Moving on to Benner. Same information, stopping sight distance defined the proposed right-of-way. We coordinated the intersection layout with the city's water pump station improvements there. We've had several meetings on that already. Replacement of trees and landscaping will be coordinated with those requirements. Again, the pedestrian ramps are at ground level, and we're not proposing any speed tables. Right-of-way acquisition is at 0.56 acres. We did reduce the right-of-way take on the southeast corner, and likely eliminates the need for additional right-of-way on the parcel at the southeast corner. So that did help a little bit when we revised the design. Next intersection is Sanders. Again, same information there, stopping sight distance controls. We'll be replacing some trees and landscaping, and again, pedestrian ramps are ground level and no speed tables are proposed. Right-of-way acquisition, there's 4 parcels and 1 at each corner. Their total is estimated at 0.43 acres. This is the other request that we have to the Commission to help us with providing direction. There's 8 poles. You see poles 1 through 8. They're not in conflict, but the estimated cost is about $1.3 million to lower those poles and lower those utilities. We do have 2 poles that are in conflict, and our estimated cost for that is about $300,000. So we're asking the Commission to give us some direction on how we should handle this, or what should we budget, and what's the scope of work going to be for this particular project. We also wanted to give you a timeline. This is our latest timeline that we've generated. We've tried to, it's an aggressive schedule, to say the least, but we're expecting that we would start construction sometime in December of 2025. And it's a very aggressive schedule, but this is what we want to propose, or this is what we're proposing to do. The one thing I wanted to point out, if you look at that note up the upper right, if we do decide to move over past 1626, it will delay the project at least several months, if not longer. So we need direction on what council would like, the commission would like to do, and and continue our project. And we have some options for you. Option one, we just take it from 2770 up to Cromwell and stop there. We do not include those 3 to 4 poles that we talked about that are there at 1626. But we still have it still in our budget, so there's no budget impact, and it will not delay the construction schedule. Option two, this is doing the whole thing from 2770 to 1626. You're looking at about $2.6 million. Contingency could be used, but it's not expected to impact the budget. We add about a year to the project as far as construction. Option three, do not authorize expenditures and limit the relocation of the overhead lines to the project limits. We would still do the $300,000 project for those 2 poles on the west end that need to be moved. So we'll still do those. That's about $300,000, so that's not a great budget impact. And the project schedule will still stay on schedule. Option four, any other directions that you may give us. Staff is recommending option one. Let's take it from 2770 to Cromwell, and we need about $1.6 million in additional funding for that. Questions?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Leon, look, honestly, I think last week showed us the importance of burying our poles. We definitely had Center Street shut down for quite a bit. So I'm kind of leaning towards burying everything where we can, where we have projects coming forward. Since this is a project that's moving forward, I mean, not being able to take advantage of this time, what would it cost later to do? So I think it'd be more efficient if we did it now and spent the little extra. And we have it in a contingency, right, Brian? Or put it part of the overall budget for it?
For the 1.6, we do. For the 2.6, I don't know if the additional funds, that would be an additional request, additional cost.
It could be.
Right. That would be more than we have. But I think what our perspective is we know the undergrounding of utility lines is very important. I think it's been expressed by the council and this board many times. We can always look at that as a future project, complete all the work that we have planned, and look at doing those other lines in undergrounding and potentially going further down Kohler's at a later time. That's how we're thinking about it. Certainly there's other perspectives, but that would be kind of how we would approach as another project later on, so it wouldn't impact the construction schedule for all of the other roundabouts that we have planned. So we have a lot of plans for Kohler's, including the overpass over the rail line, two other roundabouts that we're looking at as well. It could be considered as part of that kind of project at that time.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's because we're already digging it up, right? So if you're digging it up, why dig it up twice? I guess is what my thing, because that's gonna cost us twice as much, so I know we're already delayed on the project, so a little bit more of a delay, how do we feel about it? I think that's what we have to ask ourselves as a commission is, do we want to be right on the schedule now that they're giving us, 'cause it's already behind schedule, or do we continue down this route? I guess my issue is that I don't want to do it twice.
Sure.
I'd love to dig it up once and not have to do it again, because to dig it up again is more expensive. So are we actually saving money by pushing it down the road, or is it more efficient to do it now?
Councilmember, this is food for thought. 1626 at one time, say about 10 years ago, there was consideration to put a roundabout there, and we talked to Textile a lot about that. And I think there was a bit of pushback from the citizens on that. So Textile ended up, at that point in time, it was always stops. If y'all remember that, it was always stops. And so Textile at the last minute decided just to go ahead and put up the traffic signals. So there may be in the future plans an opportunity to maybe even put a roundabout there, or maybe even more something that would handle more traffic, maybe an overpass on 1626, go through that intersection. So if we start moving utilities right now and lower them, they could be in conflict with those projects if they ever come online. But that's a future. But that was something I just wanted to put out there.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Leo.
That intersection has been identified as a concern for us moving forward with the roundabouts that we have planned in this area that we're talking about. We have two others on Kohlers to the east of that, and we have the overpass over the rail line, and of course, the project underneath 35. So there's a lot of traffic planned in the future. We've done some modeling that shows that intersection at Kohlers and 1626 will fail, not have enough, be too much traffic for the traffic control that's there. So I think Leon's correct. We will need something. When that is, how it's funded, I can't tell you just right now. But I guess for all those reasons, that's why we were looking at, let's move forward with what we know we can do. We believe the project is on track and on schedule. Let's keep it moving and look at this as a future phase. That was our recommendation. Certainly, there's other perspectives, but we wanted to just talk about it and see where you were.
Yeah, so option one is really what y'all recommend.
Can you go ahead and put that recommendation up once again? And is there any other comments from Councilmember Trujillo?
I understand where you're coming from, Councilmember Rizzo, but we also got to look at, we need to minimize as much disruption of service to the residents. If there's a specific budget we need to stick by, that's one thing we got to really look at is the financing. It's hard to say if we're going to be paying more down the road, but because everything's going to go up, obviously. But I think taking it step by step, and if this is what the staff is recommending that we do, and if there's other poles that do not need to come down at this time, we can wait till later. That's the way I look at it. Again, any kind of construction we do, whether it's a roundabout or widening a road, it's going to impact our residents. We got to look at it from that level. I want to minimize as much impact and traffic jams and road blockages and service. Of course, those poles are going to need to come down, so people are going to be without electricity, and that would also be one of the questions I know you probably won't be able to answer, but if they bring down these two lines, what would be possibly from PEC's perspective, the amount of time that people would be without power at certain times of the day? I guess that's how they would have to do it, correct? They're just not going to shut it all down and then it's going to take a week. It's going to be, have to do it in spurts. So we have to
That's correct.
look at that as well. So I'm okay with the option one that is being recommended.
Okay, more
go ahead,
discussion?
go ahead.
Yes.
Well, I have a question that's independent from this, so if you want to respond to him.
I was just gonna make the motion to.
Oh, yeah, let me ask a
Yeah,
question
go
really quick. Going back to the potential roundabout at Kohlers and 1626, how, if we're sitting here right now acknowledging to ourselves that that's going to be a future need for us, how do we engage, instead of being reactive and waiting for TxDOT to make it a priority, and where their priorities are the whole state, how do we make that a priority for them?
Well, I think we have engaged TxDOT on that issue. Just to the, I'm trying to make sure I get all my directions right, just to the north of that at Avenue A, close to the Sprouts location, we had quite a bit of discussion with TxDOT about putting a signalized intersection there. The concern was that signal was too close to the intersection at 1626 in Kohlers. So we actually did some traffic analysis and traffic impact studies to see if that would work, how it would work. And what we all identified, and I think TxDOT agreed with us, is that that intersection will have to change at some point. There were some alternatives that were identified, and we're still looking at which one probably is the best one for it. Probably won't be just a roundabout. It's going to have to be something a little bit more creative than that. Could be the overpass that Leon mentioned. So we're looking at those, working with TxDOT, and then trying to see how ultimately that would get done and how it could be funded. But we are engaging with them to work through that, and it's really kind of come out of some of the development that we've had in the area. Hopefully that helps answer the question.
Okay. Any more questions or
Can I ask a
discussion?
question, Debbie? Leon, is the 1.6 million being proposed, is this affecting, I guess, only the poles in conflict? This moves only the poles in conflict? Is that the proposal?
No, sir, it's for all of the poles in conflict. Or
For
the
only
poles
the-
in conflict plus the poles not in conflict.
1 through 8, plus 1
Right.
and 2.
So we're asking for the authority, for the expenditure authority to move all of those poles.
Yeah, so I have to think about like the staying within our constraints, because they're not in conflict, and we just want to move them because it would be neater and cleaner. Is that, there's no roundabout that's going to conflict with those, right?
That is correct. The roundabout, that's not a conflict with the roundabout. The ones that are in conflict are number 1 and 2 on the right.
Right. I think the way we've been looking at it, Councilmember, is all of our other road bond projects that we have, they all have an undergrounding component of the electrical lines. And as we were touching this roadway, the conversations that we've had with this board were to look at doing something similar. If you touch it and you move some of these that will be in conflict, let's go ahead and underground them at the same time. Perhaps back to Councilmember Rizzo's comment as well.
And the reason why is when you're looking, I'm sorry, what are you doing?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that the poles help with lighting, right? Because you do have street lights on those poles, so now you're gonna make it even darker by not having the lights on those poles.
We're improving the, exactly.
There'll be a lighting element to this, okay.
Lighting is included in the project.
Yeah, but it's just kind of like, we understand that the road bond is designed to try to touch as much underground as possible. And we could go over budget on all that too. So why was there no option only to do the poles in conflict?
I believe that's option number 3, Councilmember.
Okay.
But we do believe that with the 1.6 expenditure, that we would be within budget. We have contingency funding that we would apply to move those poles that are outside of the conflict.
So option 3 is limiting only the 2 that do need to be moved, right?
That is correct, for the 300,000.
Okay. Okay, that's my question.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I
comments?
just want to, and exactly, just like Councilmember Tobias says, limiting the impact on the residents. That's why I figured, let's do it now than do it later, because if you wait till later, you're now closing down the road twice instead of once. And that's what I'm looking at is, where's the cost savings for us? Let's do it one time, let's get it over with, and then, but if there's areas that we're gonna touch later, then let's avoid those. But I think, I'm good with option 1, so go to option 1 real quick. Commissioner, I'd like to make a motion to approve option 1 as written.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion in a couple of seconds. Any further discussion?
I just had one comment. Are there any, besides PEC poles, what other communications are going to be on those poles that might be affected? Are we looking at Frontier? Are we looking at Spectrum? Are we looking at not just PEC? Because those poles get utilized by everybody, including phone lines, which I was working on that today with a
I believe there's Frontier on one of the poles, but they're all going to go underground in addition to PEC.
Okay. So those poles that are in question, they don't have any other communication outlets just on that end? Or I'm just thinking, is it electrical pole, is it just the electrical wires? But of course, like I said, a lot of them.
So beside the 3-phase pole. So Joanne Garcia for the city project manager on this project. So beside the PEC pole, there's what we call a short pole.
Okay.
They've been cut by PEC and communication lines are on it. There's one communication line with about 4 overhead communication companies that will be in conflict. We'll have to relocate those communication lines to go under, for probably the same distance as the overhead PEC lines.
Okay. So would that 1.6 be
It covers.
all combined together?
So
Okay.
if the PEC and the communication lines are in conflict because of the road infrastructure, then if the other facilities or entities are in our right of way, not on an easement, they had to move on their own expense because they were in conflict with our road improvements. If they're not in conflict with our road improvements, then the city has to pay for the relocations
Exactly.
because they were not in conflict with the road improvements. So at that location, the ones that are in conflict had to move on their own expense to be out of conflict with the road improvements, which is the storm drain, illumination, road pavement.
Okay. That brings up, other parts to this scenario. Because if we start bringing the poles down, then it could be other companies saying, wait a minute, we were not approved of this. And we'll be picking up the tab for that, which means it'll increase on that. So I just want to make sure we're covered. If we go with this recommendation and we go with this vote, that will be okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I just, one thing I wanted to add was, when we created Tirz number 2, the original map, we put it over the entire Plum Creek North Lennar development project, and they actually opposed it. So they came up, they wrote a letter, they sent a letter, they said, we don't want to be included in this Tirz. This Tirz exists for the brick and mortar district. Sent the letter and came, but we talked to them more about it, and their number one reason for concern was that they thought all the money that the Tirz would spend for capital projects would be to the east of them. It would be to the brick and mortar district and into the Momark development. And they were trying to figure out how is this plan that you have going to impact Lennar and this subdivision. And this was the project right here, these poles that were up, that was identified as something that would be important to them because it really improves the aesthetic of the Plum Creek North subdivision. So I'm happy to see it come forward. I have a picture of it because they're adding poles, and then you add poles. Once the way state law works, correct me if I'm wrong, but once the pole is up, new fiber optic lines can get laid, and they don't have to ask our permission. And so it's just more, and like downtown, you remember how many line after line after line was added? Well, once they're undergrounded, that changes the dynamics there quite a bit. So it does have a big impact. So for me, I'm excited to do this because it's, even though that maybe not a lot of us were there when this was created, that was something that ended up allowing for Lennar, which has created immense cash flow value to the Tirz, that subdivision. It's not, I mean, it's this almost the size of a city going up out there, but they're, this would benefit them, and I think that's at least worth noting.
That's great. Okay, any other discussion? Questions? Is there a motion?
We're already
I had a motion.
Oh,
second.
okay, there is, okay, sorry about that. Okay, if there is no other comments or questions, okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I guess that comes to the conclusion of this Tirz number 2 board. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.